Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Item 2.0, we have a good number of people here about 8.0. So if the commission, if it's okay with the commissioners, I'd like a motion to move 8.0 up to after the public comment section. Are y'all opposed to that?
So moved.
We have a second. It's been first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is passed. So 2.0, approval of the agenda. Do we do another motion to approve the agenda? Would the last one count for the edit? Sorry.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
We just made a motion to change the agenda. Does that count as approving the agenda, or do I need to approve it again?
I think for clarity of the record, you should approve
Okay.
again.
So, we have a second? Second. It's been first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions? It is passed. 3.0, approval of the meeting minutes from January 12th, 2026. Do I have a motion?
Move approval of the meeting minutes from January 12th, 2026.
We have a second? Second. It's been first and second. Any questions?
Yes, I have one comment, if I may, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you. In regards to new business 8.2, Music Row Economy Parking Status Update, my recollection, and I may not remember this properly, where the last sentence reads, it was also confirmed that no changes had been made to the new parking spaces that were previously approved in the Music Row area. I believe the discussion at the time was that those parking spaces would revert from the current zone pricing to the economy zone pricing simultaneously with the rollout of, so if that is true, may we,
I can note that. I interpreted as what we were saying is that they hadn't currently been changed. At that moment, they had not, the signs had not come down, but I can go in and revise that.
either way.
Okay.
Thank you, darling.
So the edit specifically, is it an ad or is it something here need to be edited?
Could you get on mic, please? Could you come to the microphone, please?
Please state your name for the record.
Darlene Thompson with NDOT. I interpret it as being the signs had not but yet been replaced, but I can go ahead and make your edits. Will be an edit to the previous notes.
Should maybe clarify the edit and then.
Yeah.
Can I go write it down while you're telling me what you want me to exactly clarify it to?
I'm not super clear on what's requested, but I think we should state what the edit is
That's fine.
before we approve the minutes.
Want me to? Or
Yes,
Or
please.
staff, or whoever.
Ms. Thompson?
No, please clarify what you would like it to be made to.
Well, Ms. Thompson, thank you. I understand now your interpretation, or I interpret this now based on what your intent was.
Okay,
So if we wanna,
do you want it moved to what you would like it? Because interpretation, I mean, we could add the other language also. That they would be moved to economy zones. No signs have been removed to date, but they will be moved to economy zones. Does that, okay.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you very much.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The meetings from January 12th has passed. I want to acknowledge, I know we've got two council members in the audience. Is there anybody else in here other than Councilmember Cash and Coopin? With that, we'll move to item 4.0, public comment. Councilmember Cash, would you like to go first? So we let people talk during the public comment section for specific items. So if you could just go ahead now. State your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name's Councilmember Tom Cash of the 18th District. There's an RPP proposal in here. I'm going to read because I want to go quickly and don't want to get off track. 12 South is an area that's seen a lot of commercial growth in the last decade. It's an area with little buffer between commercial and residential. In 12 South, we've been working on a comprehensive plan to ease parking concerns, which are pretty great. We've had several meetings. NDOT did a survey. They got hundreds of responses. We got it from a feedback form. We had a meeting at Midtown Precinct. And NDOT has plans for several pieces of legislation relating to RPP, and it's that this RPP request is a small part of a bigger picture that I wanted to take time to explain what's going on, and out of the context of just these two requests today. These two requests today and one next month that have been on the hold for about 9 to 12 months as we've looked at a more comprehensive plan that includes like RPP zones, geofencing, ride share, loading zones, limits on parking on 12th Avenue, striping, having no parking zones, things like that. We've made good progress on a plan, and today's request is a first step in implementing it. I think NDOT is working on a plan to create RPP zone legislation. I can add that residents report better regular enforcement taking place on the streets that already have it. One element I wanted to share today that's been the toughest piece of this discussion, as currently each street has to apply, and the application has applicants choose like the to from addresses, where the address starts on the street, where it ends for the RPP zone or length. And so if there's and also if they choose, if there's any length of time that a non-permit holder can park without being penalized. And that's the piece that I'm having trouble with. NDOT and I are both agree that we need a standard for the area and not a mishmash of street by street. There are differing opinions on that. The survey results showed residents split almost 50-50, with 49% saying no allowances, and then the remaining 51 split between 1 and 2 hour allowances. Merchants would prefer that there be, of course, be some kind of allowances for customer turnover. Note that there are plenty of commercial spaces in 12 South, but property owners have contracted with parking management companies. So it's like $18 an hour. Everyone goes for free parking. I'm going to jump a little bit here if you bear with me. But as I've said, we're struggling with the 1 or 2 hour allowances. On one hand, it's much easier for enforcement, and that's kind of, I guess, my default and why I submitted it the way I did. But some residents and merchants do prefer an hour allowance. And since we are trying to set a practice or a protocol for an area, and these are kind of the two, and next month makes 3 requests. We're kind of trying to set a standard for the whole area, and I thought that might be worth discussing, the pros and cons. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Coopin, are you speaking on the same item? Which item are you speaking on? Okay. I'm going to jump to Ms. Robin real quick because she's talking on 5.2, just for some consistency, and then jump to that. Is that okay? Yes. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Robin Lovett Owen. I'm a member of the Vision Zero Advisory Committee. I'm a pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and I'm here today to talk about the speed limit recommendation on Haywood Lane and to urge you to lower it not to 35 miles an hour, but to 30 miles an hour. I live off of Haywood Lane, and I was the pastor of a church on Haywood Lane for many years until this past August. Haywood Lane has been in the high injury network since Nashville adopted a Vision Zero framework. In the last 3 years, there have been over 50 fatal and injury crashes on Haywood Lane. And last year alone, in 2025, there were 2 pedestrians killed on Haywood, Mr. Lawtoon and Mr. James Burns. Unlike many roads in our high injury network, Haywood is entirely locally owned, which means that Nashville can make much needed safety interventions that would allow us to meet our goal of 0 deaths or injuries on our roadways. But we continue to choose not to make these interventions. Even the recommendations that NDOT is putting forward now, like the 35-mile speed limit, do not safeguard human life or honor our commitments to Vision Zero. So I want to urge you all this afternoon to lower it to 30 miles an hour in an effort to save the lives of my neighbors, people like Mr. Lawtoon and James Burns. To give you some facts about why those 5 little numbers make a big difference. When a pedestrian is struck at 35 miles an hour, roughly 7 out of 10 times that person will die. But when a person is struck at 30 miles an hour, that drops to about 4 out of every 10 times. A 5-mile-per-hour difference is the difference between most people dying and most people living. And as someone who drives on this road every single day, I can promise you that it will make no meaningful difference in the lives and the experience of drivers on that road. It will not make any meaningful difference in how long our commutes are. There will absolutely be other pedestrians who are hit on Haywood Lane in the future. And so in thinking about their lives and trying to safeguard their lives, I would like to ask you to lower it to 30. And I would also note that NDOT's recommendation for 35 comes from an automatic tool that they use, and you are able to go past that recommendation, and NDOT has gone past that recommendation on other roads in town. So
Thank you, Ms.
thank you
Owen.
for your time.
Councilman Coopin. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Councilman Jacob Coopin, thanks for allowing me some time to speak, and appreciate you all as always. Here to talk about Lindsley and paid parking in general. In the midst of last week's storm response, when it was challenging to get NDOT folks out for brush pickup and sidewalk cleaning because they were understandably prioritizing NES areas, I was called by some residents that there was NDOT crews removing trash bags from the paid parking signs on Lindsley that had been covered up. And they stated that that was at the direction of the commission. So I just wanted to elevate that as something I'd love to get some more information on when that direction was given and why that was occurring in the midst of a storm response. But I think it speaks to the bigger challenge with paid parking that I have, which is communication. Again, I have constituents calling me saying we had no idea what's going on, and then I was scrambling to get updates and to understand what was happening. And I've been appreciated NDOT covering the signs up while they were not enforcing them, and now we're in a position again where we have signs that are up that are not being enforced. So you have some people paying for paid parking, others not. It's not being enforced. I think that creates confusion. And the right-of-way belongs to everybody, and we've heard that, but it belongs to the taxpayers. It belongs to people of the city paying taxes who live here. And so my ask of the commission and of the department has been to come up with some sort of a rubric. We have it for traffic calming, right? If I want traffic calming in my neighborhood, I put a request in. There's a rubric that evaluates whether it's warranted and what kind of measures are warranted. So my request is to have that for paid parking as well and for time parking so that we can all be on the same page, something the commission approves with public input to be on the same page for why is this street 2-hour parking versus 4-hour parking versus paid economy versus paid in full. I think we keep running into this situation where it's kind of street by street analysis versus an actual assessment. So that's been my request. I know the department has indicated they'd be open to it. And so before we continue enforcing and with Lindsley and Middleton in these streets, I would ask that we get that rubric together, make that analysis, and then determine what's warranted on those streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Leo with Audi downtown Nashville.
Yes.
If you could state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Commission, for allowing me the time to speak today. My name is Leo Chow. I'm General Manager at Audi downtown Nashville off 15 Lindsley Avenue. We understand the city has a desire to regulate parking. However, I do not believe that restricting parking to 2 hours long along Lindsley accomplishes the Traffic and Parking Commission's purpose to make our roads, streets, and other public ways safe for pedestrians, motorists, and others. In fact, it would make it less safe for patrons and teammates of the businesses along Lindsley Avenue. For our business in particular, it takes more than 2 hours to purchase a vehicle. And for teammates, they're at the store for more than 9 hours. Other parking, paid or otherwise, is over a quarter mile or so away. That forces our patrons and teammates to have to walk through areas that at the moment are not particularly the safest. That includes the end of the pedestrian bridge. It crosses over I-40. In fact, at that end, the Cordell has to hire armed security whenever they have their functions because of that concern over there. So additionally, if the parking restrictions were to be put in place, potential patrons to our businesses along Lindsley may be discouraged to visit us at all just because of the hassle of the parking, which of course would have a negative economic impact on our businesses. I believe across the board, everyone wants to have a safe and vibrant Sobro, and part of realizing that vision is to have thriving businesses that attract people to our community instead of to deter them from visiting us. Basically, it's kind of why fix it if it isn't broken thing. To better serve the commission's purpose to make our roadways safe, we should instead have proper parking offsets around the intersections and driveways and speed tables to prevent drivers from using Lindsley Avenue like a drag strip. Where my office sees that driveway that's adjacent to the Metro garage, and there have been accidents through there and a lot of near misses as well. I know we've got the YES Youth Center across the street with the Wayne Reed Daycare as well. So we have children all around through there. So in the end, just let's enforce where the cars should be parked and how fast they're going down Lindsley instead of how long they're being parked there. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Mitchell with CrossBridge, Inc. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Tina Mitchell. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I'm the President and Executive Director of CrossBridge. Our campus is located at 31 through 39 Lindsley. CrossBridge is a nonprofit that works to end destructive cycles of poverty, addiction, and incarceration. On our campus, we have 3 buildings. In total, 87 people can be housed there. Those buildings were built, renovated, and expanded with the approval of Metro Nashville and also with the assistance. We received $2.3 million in funding from Barnes. So with 87 people living on site, and the program is full today, and I might add that how important we are to Nashville is that everyone who comes to us has a criminal record. And our recidivism rate of people going back to incarceration is only 5%, while the nation's average stands at 70. So folks' lives are being changed there. We do have a small parking lot for residents, and we have 13 full-time staff who do drive in to work. We also additionally recently received funding to open a recovery center where anyone from Nashville can come for recovery services if they live on our property or not. And we received with that grant a requirement to provide training for the recovery workforce, people who work in this field. So we hold those trainings, and they are 3-hour trainings, and without anywhere to park, we will not be able to fulfill the requirements of that grant. So we're asking you to reconsider. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Viva Price. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Viva Price with Youth Encouragement Services. My name is Viva, and I'm the Executive Director of Youth Encouragement Services just across the street. We've been a part of this neighborhood for nearly 7 decades, providing after-school and summer enrichment programming for low-income families and youth who are in historically underinvested community. We want to start by saying that we appreciate the goal for improving traffic flow and safety. We share that goal. However, we're concerned that the recommended restrictions will have unintended consequences for us and for our neighbors that significantly impact our operations and even our ability to serve youth. We rely heavily on the current parking for safe student drop-off and pickup, for volunteer access, and for program partners who come on site throughout the day. So restricting this parking would make it difficult for parents who already face a lot of transportation challenges to safely access our building. If parents can't reliably drop off or pick up their children, participation drops, and students who need us most are the first to be affected. In addition, our staff and volunteers often work non-traditional hours, so limited parking would increase safety concerns, especially during the early mornings and evening, and could impact our staff retention and volunteer engagement as well. So we also want to note that as a youth-serving nonprofit, our presence benefits the broader community. Anything that limits our accessibility limits the vital community resource. So we're not here to simply oppose the recommendation, but are asking for collaboration. We'd welcome the opportunity to explore alternatives or other exemptions and would like for the restrictions to be removed until a deeper economic and usage study has actually taken place. So thank you for considering the real-world impact on organizations like ours and our neighbors, and we look forward to working together toward a solution that supports both safety and access.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neilie Glenn, please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Neilie Glenn, and I am one of the owners of the event venue, the Cordell, at 45 Lindsley Avenue. I am here today because recently parking signs were installed around our business, literally in the dark of the night, it felt like, with zero notice and zero public process. To change the rules of the game on a small business overnight isn't just a hurdle. It has real-life, immediate consequences for people who keep our doors open. Most of my staff cannot afford to live in the city that they serve. They commute from Murfreesboro because Nashville's housing market has priced them out. To place the burden of restrictive parking on these workers or on us as a small business after our real estate taxes have literally already just doubled is frankly cruel and unusual. We are being squeezed from every direction, and I want to be clear, I am very much a supporter of bike lanes and expanded transit. I believe in a growing Nashville, but you have implemented a solution where there wasn't a problem. Currently, those streets are empty. There is plenty of street parking available, yet you have decided to restrict it to 2 hours, and now you say you're going to meter the streets. Why and for what reason is my question. By doing this, you have left us with no alternatives. This isn't just an inconvenience, it is a safety concern. When my female staff members finish a shift late at night, they are now forced to walk a half of a mile or more through an industrial, often isolated neighborhood because they can no longer park near their workplace, because there are no parking structures or alternatives on the hill. Therefore, we are asking for a fair and public process to be created around these decisions. We are asking you to take these signs down and look at the actual economic and human impact of these decisions. Please don't make it harder for small businesses and working class people to exist in the city. We are grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Janoka Watson? Sorry?
That's my handwriting. Chandra Watson.
Okay. Thanks for covering for me. Please.
Yes, Chandra Watson. Thank you all for your time today. I, along with my 2 business partners, own and operate 3 private event spaces in the heart of Nashville, including the Cordell on Lindsley, which she just mentioned. In 2013, we purchased the condemned building at 45 Lindsley, saving a historically valuable building from being torn down. After renovating and restoring that property, we began hosting events in 2014. Since that time, we have seen the city change, and increasingly it has become more difficult for small business to survive. Astronomical increases in everything from property tax to cost of goods and services are a daily strain on all non-corporate funded businesses. Now I'd like to address why we're here today. In a TNP meeting last March, NDOT proposed a 2-hour parking restriction for this area. That measure passed without any community notification or involvement. Signs were posted 7 months later in October, and our businesses, neighbors, and employees and clients were blindsided. During the 7 months, from the restriction passing to implementation, the community was never notified. Due to the lack of communication, we missed our 60-day window to appeal. That is why we are here today. Parking restrictions, paid parking, bike lanes, etc., all have safety and economic effects on the charity and religious organizations, small and large businesses, offices, residents, and short-term rentals that comprise our neighborhood. Nightlife, retail, and restaurants make up a very small percentage of the businesses in our area, and yet the current parking restrictions reflect as such. All this speaks to a tone-deaf implementation on our public streets, which have a detrimental economic and safety effect on the taxpayers mentioned. NDOT is a public service agency, and yet the public has not been considered or notified. At this time, we ask the current parking restrictions be removed until a proper economic and usage study is completed by NDOT with community involvement. Taxpayers deserve accountability and respect, and our tax dollars are a primary source of funding. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Leah Watson. You have 2 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Lee Watson, and I'm one of the owners of the Cordell. I'm also Chandra's twin sister, so if you think you're seeing double, you actually are. I don't want to go through, some of the things that I had written down because they are very similar to what my two business partners did state. What I do want to address, though, is our location and the options that we have for parking up there. I'm not going to say the same things that everyone else has said because they're all true. But our issue really is we do not have other parking options. We back up into the freeway and we are sandwiched between 2nd and Hermitage. This gives us very limited options of getting people out of that zone safely. It's hard for my people to understand when I tell them they can't park directly in front of the business when there's no cars there. And to send people blocks and blocks away to find alternative parking when we have parking right in front of the building, it seems to just conflict with what we feel like is a community that's looking after one another. I do want to say that the current parking restrictions affect everyone on our street, which is why we're all here today. But the people who will be most affected by this restriction or by charging for parking will be our lower income workers. Those will be our caterers, our servers, our bartenders, our bands who come in for events, like we said, are driving in from out of town and who really can't afford to live in Nashville. And those are the people who are our foundation of what we sell people to bring them to our city and to pay tax dollars. There are no other options up there, so we're asking our public servants to create solutions before they create problems that can affect the safety of our employees and the financial well-being of our community and small business. We ask that you let us be a part in making Nashville a place where we can all thrive, not for tourists and only big business, but for the small businesses as well. Until we can reasonably find a parking solution on Lindsley, we ask that the restrictions be removed and a study completed with the consideration of those that need and use the parking daily. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Gina Teak. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
It's Gina Tech. I am a member at Lindsley Avenue Church of Christ and the current board chair of our sister nonprofit, Preserve Lindsley Avenue Now. Our building right across the street at the corner of 2nd and Lindsley has been there since 1894, long before any of us had offices here or any of these businesses. In 1920, David Lipscomb's congregation, founder of Lipscomb University, moved his congregation to our location. So we've been there for over 100 years now. We could have chosen with time to leave the downtown community like many churches have done, but we wanted to stay. We wanted to contribute to the downtown community and be a part of this community. And so what we did in 2014, we started our nonprofit and started restoring our old beautiful building, which, by the way, had no lights go out during the storm, no loss of electricity, no internet down. So it was built well. It was built to stay. So we have preserved the exterior of our building. I'm sure as you drive by, you've seen scaffolding for years now and work done on the building because we want it to be a safe, welcoming part of our community. So now that we've gotten the preservation done to this point, we are able to use our resources as community outreach. We partner with Metro Arts, Metro Housing. We have office hours for the Metro Office of Homeless Services. About 30 of our members that attend on Sunday are unhoused or marginally housed. So we are part of this community and plan on staying and being part of this. But as that growth has happened, our small parking lot doesn't handle our growth anymore. So when we have events, it spills over into the neighborhood parking and we find that it's creating an opportunity for people to not want to come because they don't know where to park. They don't want to pay for parking, all the problems that we all encounter. And I am sure, because our parking lot is free, if I ask for a show of hands, many of you have used our parking lot from time to time. So, and we welcome that. People ask us, oh, you can make a lot of money by charging parking. We don't want to do that. We're a community service, and we need to partner with you to help us to make that, to continue to be available. An example is this Thursday night, Historic Nashville is using our building for their annual meeting. We'll have about 150 people there. That's not going to work for our little parking lot of maybe 25, 30 places. So as we want to continue and grow, be part of this community, we ask you to consider, as everyone else has said, different solutions, because we want to help people want to come to downtown. We want to be a part of this community, and we ask you to look at some solutions that work for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Leila? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Leila Vartan. Hello to everybody. Where is the harm in me parking in front of my house?
Excuse me, sorry. Can you speak to?
Sit down?
Yes, ma'am. We need you to speak into the mic.
Because I have a loud voice. All right.
Thank you.
And I also have pictures I'd like to pass out to you if you don't mind. Thank you. Where is the harm in me parking in front of my own home without having to pay for parking? Sensibility has been thrown out the window. I've lived on Middleton Street for over 20 years. It's been vacant with parking. Still today, it is vacant with parking, as you could see by those pictures. The only people who really park there in the daytime are possibly some construction workers. Without any notice, Middleton Street has been selected to have paid parking as of October 2025. How do you select the streets? First of all, I've asked this question many times. Nobody has an answer. How many of you have to pay to park in front of your home? Property taxes have gone up as well. I have many vehicles because of my business, so obviously I park on the street. I've gotten many parking tickets, but they've been taken care of by Emmy and by Councilman Coopin. When I reached out to him, they had put bags over the signs. They took the bags down as of February 2nd. And NDOT took the bags down when we had an ice storm. The manpower was used to prioritize the taking of the signs instead of helping the city clean up trees that had been fallen. Again, where is the harm in me parking in front of my home without having to pay? They told me to apply for a parking permit. I did. I was denied because I have a garage. Rutledge Street at City Lights has a garage. They get to park in their garage, but they also have parking that is not paid parking in front of their building as well, which I have pictures of as well. Please help us. Please help Lindsley Avenue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Here's some more pictures if you'd like to look at them. Thank you.
Durk Melton, you're here on 7.1, correct? Yes. Well, I've got 3 more left on 8.0. You mind waiting? Mr. David Ellis, please state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is David Ellis, and I represent the Muse at 65 Lindsley Avenue. We are a mixed-use 5-story complex that is about 90% short-term rentals that serves guests visiting Nashville. Our average guest stayed 3 to 4 days at a time and need a safe and convenient place to park for those days. They drive in from all over the U.S. or fly in and get a rental car. Lindsley Avenue, between 2nd and Herbert Avenue, has 2/3 of a mile of street parking, and there has never been a want or lack of parking. On any given busy weekend, there is always plenty of parking for all. The Muse has 50 short-term rental units, and on any given weekend, we have 200-plus guests visiting Nashville. For the past 3 years, our guests have had free, easy, safe street parking at the building to park near and walk in their luggage. For the past 2 months, we have had mass confusion from guests about the new 2-hour parking signs that went in unannounced and why they need to pay and then also move their car every 2 hours, and why we told them it was free street parking when they booked 3 or 4 months ago. This has caused unhappy guests and bad reviews for our owners. If we had to ask visiting guests to pay $2 an hour, they would just go stay someplace else, and we would be out of business. Or a new financial burden for our owners to pay, who have no other place to park their guests for days at a time, would put them out of business. In 2022, our building at 65 Lindsley Avenue replaced a couple of old rundown vacant buildings that created zero revenue for the city. Currently, our new 4-year-old building sends around $300,000 annually to the city in property taxes, not counting the hotel occupancy taxes generated. Because of this, we respectfully ask that the 2-hour parking signs be removed so our owners and guests don't have to be asked to park blocks away and drag their luggage to the building. Any help you can give us in this matter would greatly be appreciated. I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Monica Strobble. State your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
I'm Monica Strobble, representing the Burgundy Group at 58 Lindsley Avenue. I'm not a public speaker, so we'll see how this goes. The 2-hour parking signs that went up actually have created several dangerous situations. The traffic has moved on to Academy Place, which is a very small strip, but when cars park on both sides of the street, it becomes a one-way street. The problem is, which way is the one way? So I'm often pulling in and discovering that another car is coming the opposite direction, so where do I go? I need to go down Academy Place to access the alleyway to our parking lot behind our building. So I think it's ironic that it has called this is a Vision Zero campaign, and it has become a zero vision issue. Second thing is Lindsley now has become a speed strip. When there are not cars parked on the sides, please invite the officer to come and hand out tickets, because almost every day there are at least 3-4 cars going full speed down Lindsley. It's a shortcut from getting off the interstate and getting to Hermitage Avenue. I better wrap this up. We have limited parking in our parking lot behind 58 Lindsley. We have 8 employees and 7 spots. I hate to think that I've got to limit the number of employees we'd like to hire at the Burgundy Group because we don't have any place to park for them. No one was communicated on this issue, and there is great confusion over whether these signs are in force or if they're covered. So we would appreciate some consideration on that. If you'd like suggestions, we'd love to have speed limit signs replace those 2-hour parking signs. We'd love to have flashing lights for the crosswalk, and hey, add a few more crosswalks too, because people are constantly being dropped off at the Muse on our side of the street, and they've got to get across the street, and I don't want to see anyone hit. So please ask us who live and work on the street for suggestions, rather than putting up signs that we didn't even ask for or know why they're there. And I'll just say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Matt Taylor. You have 2 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Matt Taylor. I own the historic house built in 1896 at 56 Lindsley, next to where Ms. Strobble is. You've heard a lot of the complaints that we can repeat here. Essentially, the two-hour sign change has created both an economic and a safety hardship for us. We have a tenant upstairs that's another small business. They've been forced, because there's no public parking infrastructure anywhere near the Hermitage end of Lindsley Avenue, to try and park on Academy. As just stated, Academy is too narrow to support two-way traffic and parking on both sides of the street. It's also unsafe being on access with the pedestrian bridge that crosses I-40. A few years ago, we had an employee leaving work, went down the alley, turned left on Academy, had a couple of young men stop in front of her car, pull her out of it, punch her in the face, steal her purse and her phone, and fortunately didn't steal her car, and she's okay now. But our tenant has primarily female employees that now have to walk down that alley to Academy to park. As a result, they've decided not to renew their lease when it's up this summer, and we've got to find a new tenant while we have 2-hour parking limit signs that we rely on for tenant parking. The way this has all been implemented, I only got connected with some of our neighbors last week when the bags came back off the signs. We've never been contacted about the policy change, about the signs going up, about the bags coming down. As I think you've heard from every property owner on Lindsley today, no one on our street has asked for this. It's solving a problem that didn't exist. No one wants it now, and it's created a hardship for each and every one of us in multiple different ways. So I think we've solved a problem that was not in existence before, and respectfully, I think we all ask that these signs be taken down. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Rowan, please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Frank Rowan, good afternoon. I have 2 items today. One is a little bit of feedback on the recent Music Row paid parking edition. I did get to experience it and use the parking app, and my event ran a little bit over, so I went to extend my parking time, and it chose to give me an extra 16 or 17 minutes of parking at the full hourly rate, but then it failed to actually give it to me and refused to actually let me extend my parking. Fortunately, that was before enforcement started, which I confirmed by talking to an enforcement officer there, so it worked out okay. Maybe there are issues with the parking app you might want to look into. Second item, the last meeting I was at, I think it was November, there's a notation in the agenda saying that the commission has the authority to put in these restrictions when they do an engineering study. And one of the commission members was very, paid attention to that comment and actually asked NDOT, was there an engineering study for the parking changes that were going to be put in place? And the NDOT representative just ignored the question, basically talked all around it, did not answer that question. I have not heard of a single engineering study for any of these parking areas. I really would appreciate if you guys would enforce the need for an engineering study when these parking restrictions are put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Melton, thank you for your patience. You're here for 7.1, correct? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Durk Melson with Marshroot Enterprises. I know you have a packed agenda today, so I'll be brief. Last month I was here speaking on the potential revocation of the valet lane in front of the former Sambuca restaurant at 601 12th Avenue South. I had requested the potential opportunity to return that to a valet lane status if that status changed because of the lapse with that restaurant having gone out of business. And I promised to come back to this commission when I had an update on our situation, and now we do. So I have with me a letter of intent with a replacement restaurant that we're hopeful to convert to lease. We're pretty excited about it. That'd be really great for the neighborhood. And so, you know, I think our request at this point would be, our understanding from staff is that the current recommendation is to convert that valet lane to a loading zone. And with the potential for us to come back with this user in place at the future time to convert that back to valet parking. We're fully supportive of that recommendation and really appreciate the consideration from staff and from this group in order to allow us to maintain that in the future for a restaurant that is really going to need it. So if that's the pleasure of the commission, we'd be very grateful for that. And hopefully we can get this thing signed up and get a great new restaurant in the Gulch. So thank you.
Thank you. that wraps up our public comment section. With that, we will shift to item 8.0 as we moved it up. New business update on Middleton Street and Lindsley Avenue parking. Staff? Or Emmy? You have the floor. You mind turning that mic off, Brandon? Thank you. Or you can use it, either one.
So I'm sorry, are we speaking to 8.0?
8.0, please state your name for the record.
My name is Emmanuel Matias. I'm with NDOT. I made some notes because there's a lot that happened on Middleton and Lindsley, and I wanted to make sure I don't miss anything out. If you don't mind, I'm going to read this out. Middleton Street was requested for paid parking to better align with the surrounding streets, which were already paid, and to support our planned southbound expansion. At the same time, we were moving forward with the paid parking in the HOB lot, which is the lot here, after hours, and installing access control system across the campus, with Lindsley planned as time parking at the time as part of the broader area-wide change. While this approval allows us to change curb use, installation doesn't always happen immediately. It can take 30, 60, 90, or even more days. This was one of those situations where the timing of the operations didn't work out based on some of the issues that we have with the Howard lot. This case, the delay disrupted the sequencing. And so originally, as Middleton and Lindsley and the Howard lot were intended to launch together, when Howard lot didn't launch at the expected time, it just kind of threw everything off. When the Howard installation was delayed, it just broke down the cohesion. During this waiting period after installation of the street signs, we still followed the policy that was active at the time, which did not include, and I have to speak to some of these comments that were mentioned earlier. They are true. The time parking at that time was not requiring, as per our internal policies, to receive a notice. It was only paid parking. So it is true that notice was not given for Lindsley Street, which is the time parking area. And that obviously has since was brought to our attention. We focused on it. This is now an updated it yielded an updated policy that has now also included time parking to receive these notices and these flyers. In fact, we'll do two sets of flyers now. One is going to be an engagement flyer before something is installed, and then following an approval, it will be a notification flyer that would inform of what was approved. So that yielded this change. The policy at that time, however, before the changes were made, it still called for soft enforcement approach, focused on education, which we have done. And what that means is that we would issue warning citations, which would not have monetary value on them. So if somebody were to receive a ticket, it doesn't go to Traffic and Violation Bureau. There's no payment required. It's just an education tool. What happened during this soft enforcement period, which is the 2-week period that we have during this, during every install, is that a number of live citations went live. Live citations were issued by mistake. And so with the delay of the Howard lot, with the soft enforcement failing in that sense, when the citations were mistakenly issued, we felt like the best course of action would be until everything gets cleared out to bag the signs. And so we had some meetings with the community that was here. Actually, at that point, we listened, and I'm surprised that some of these comments happened today, because we have a scheduled meeting for tomorrow, and some of the comments that were placed here today, we feel like we have some solutions for that, which again will be discussed tomorrow. One of them will be extending the time parking time to 4 hours, which would solve some of the constituents' issues, because some of the businesses needed more than 2 hours, 3 hours for some of their sessions. So 4 hours would solve that. And so once again, I just wanted to say that we use this time and experience to update our policy. We did back the signs, that is true. It gave us a clear and more controlled rollout for the future. We are now implementing more flyers to go out for every installation, including time parking, which was not the case before. And we also learned that we need to communicate when an approved change through this body sometimes might be delayed. And it might go live after an approval is being given. I also want to mention that the parking that was mentioned that on Middleton is currently not occupied. It's not occupied because it's paid. When it was free, it was always full. And so the current situation displaced all the parking to the surrounding area, and also some of the parking now is at the Howard lot, which is also a problem. So, we are dealing with the Lindsley Street, the Howard lot, the Middleton, the displaced parking, the overarching area. Then we have the mobility plan for the overarching area. So there's multiple things that are happening at the same time. It's very hard to balance all of them out. And I do feel the frustration of everybody who spoke here today. But on the other side also, it will always feel when parking is implemented that something is being taken away. And we have to think about everybody who parks. And so it's never going to be as easy as if somebody doesn't have enough parking spaces for the employees, that street parking is always going to be there to provide parking for 8 hours. It's really hard to do in a city that's growing. And we are working on trying to come up with programs such as annual permits, such as different ways to help the businesses. But just because somebody's renting out a business that have 25 parking spaces, have 40 employees, it's unrealistic to expect that those 15 spaces will be always on street available for those employees. It's just unfortunately not the way that works in a city that grows at this speed. And so, as mentioned earlier, we on street approximately, we accommodate for 1% of parking for all the vehicles that come through to the city every day. Of course, there are off-street parking lots, and that's what they are for, so that they have monthly passes, they have all kind of accommodations to accommodate for some of the either tourists or employees. But the on-street parking with the 170,000 cars that come here daily, and we have 2,700 spaces, it's still not enough to help. Now, again, you will see some displacement in scenarios where a street might be paid parking now, and streets around it are not paid parking, so obviously people are going to move to the surrounding streets. This is why we're trying to do a cohesive implementation, and it takes time to implement that. It takes time to have everything started so that it aligns with what we want to plan out and what we want to happen. So I'm looking forward to the meeting tomorrow. I think we do have some solutions for what happened here today. I don't think everybody will be happy. I don't think anybody will ever be happy when parking is in question. So by that said, I'm sorry for the rant. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are the meters, are they active now? The signs?
The meters are active. The meters have been active. The signs have been covered.
And then the meeting tomorrow, is it a public meeting?
Correct. Yes.
And it was notices or things were sent out for this meeting for everybody to, what time is the meeting?
I believe it's at 2:30 p.m. Yeah.
How was the community notified of the meeting?
We have an email invite. I'm not sure how the person who set it up communicated out, but I have a calendar invite.
Can you
Just
disclose
like council
who's-
liaison should have been issuing out the notice.
Okay. This is not a voting item, but commissioners, we'll go down the line here, and anybody has comments or questions, feel free.
Sure, I'll jump in. So, one thing that I think is clear from NDOT's comments, and I think this was all maybe before I joined the body, that this was discussed, the whole plan for this area. Maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But it's clear from sort of NDOT and all the folks from the community that came out that there's a high demand for parking in this area. And it's difficult to accommodate that level of demand without managing the parking in some way. So I definitely understand the cause of the policy, like why we're here talking about managed parking in the first place, be it time or metered, is that there is high demand. I've personally experienced, when there's a event at the theater and I've got a meeting here, if it's BZA or something, I've circled the block multiple times. I've ended up pretty far away. I was actually, a couple years ago, I had that experience, and I was really glad to find, I forgot what side street it was, but find some paid parking that was actually available, and I was able to park my vehicle and get in here for the meeting I was needing to be at. So I certainly understand the issue. Got a lot of different users, a lot of different event spaces that, might have no activity one day and then 100 people and 100 cars the next day for an extended period. So definitely understand the issue. And I wasn't aware that we were utilizing the parking here at night to price that, or I'm not sure exactly what the parameters are around that, but I think that's a fantastic idea. It's good to hear all the concerns. It's good to hear NDOT's position. So I'm gonna keep listening on this, and I appreciate the update. But I did want to address one thing specifically. Multiple people commented on, that there was somehow like NDOT resources that should have been going to storm response were utilized to remove plastic bags. I was in super close contact with NDOT folks throughout the storm event, and they were, frankly, the most responsive department in terms of response. I could get a hold of Philip, and things would get followed through on very, very quickly. So my guess is that the folks that spent a couple hours removing plastic bags were, not the folks that were out there chainsawing trees. They were not the folks that were, running the plows and stuff. And that did not really detract from the storm response, because in my experience, NDOT was on top of it throughout the storm event. So I just wanted to share that, and I'll look forward to maybe hearing more after that meeting that y'all have scheduled.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm the bags were taken down and put up by our team that is responsible for maintaining the pay stations. So it was our internal team that is part of enforcement. It was not the team that is working on anything else.
Okay, thank you.
I'm next. Thank you. Thank you all from the community who have come out and taken your time today to address the commission. We truly appreciate and respect all of your comments. And thank you to the NDOT team as well. Very informative. I think I, like Councilmember Parker, were not serving on the commission at the time that some of this initial rollout was being discussed and approved. So I have one question and one comment. If you could share with us the logic behind, if I'm reading this correctly, and I tried to see it as I came into the meeting today. So Middleton is paid parking. Lindsley is a time-restricted 2-hour parking currently. So there's a difference from one block to the next block. Could you explain the kind of rationale behind that, and what is the pricing zone for currently on Middleton?
Well, for Middleton, it was the occupancy of vehicles because it was always full. At the time, it was free, and the overflow would go into the Howard lot. And Lindsley is part of the mobility plan that is planned to be or have a bike lane in the future. So that was the easy transition into that. Now, again, we understand that 2 hours might be enough, and we're open to extend it to 4. Hopefully, that will be sufficient for some of them, but I'm not sure if it's going to solve everybody's issue.
Okay.
And also, I might add, for Middleton Street, you also have Routledge and Leila, and streets north of them that already had existing paid parking, so.
Thank you, that clarifies. And what is the pricing zone currently on Middleton?
That's the standard pricing for CPD.
Okay. And then just one comment. We heard a lot of folks from that either live or work and experience Lindsley on a regular daily basis, asking for either the commission or NDOT to consider the speed on Lindsley. And I just want to kind of lift that up as something I think that could and should be addressed. I know personally after the last commission meeting where this was on the agenda, I went out and walked the area to kind of see it firsthand and experience it. And I almost got hit a couple times trying to cross over the street and back up. So I think we all have seen and witnessed speed violations on Lindsley. I'm not sure they're violations, but certainly they're speeding. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I'll start with I was the one that requested that this be discussed today, and I think that the frustration of us approving something in March of '25, having no update, I think this is a great example of if there are delays, I think anything like this that we approve, we should probably put on the agenda just to say, here's a quick update of what it is. So that way, everybody has an opportunity to speak multiple times. I think to the community, this body has the ability, when items are on our agenda, to adjust as we see fit and what meets what's happening in the field. I think one thing that you mentioned was that now Middleton is empty in terms of parking, which to me sounds like we've priced it too high. And so that would be something that I hope we would quickly look at to try to adjust if this needs to go down to the economy zone pricing in terms of that, if we need to adjust what the economy pricing is, so that way there is still that sort of graduated rate increase. So, you know, we are looking to try to keep people there for a certain amount of time and not necessarily in perpetuity. A quick question on this is, you had mentioned Lindsley in terms of why we went to 2-hour parking. I don't want to speak completely to what I talked about then, but I think I said, you know, normally would ask why we wouldn't just go straight to pricing it in terms of trying to get the specifics out there. But you had mentioned the mobility lane on Lindsley. Can you speak to that again?
I'm sorry, I'm not the expert for mobility. We really just, from the parking side, we were trying to make it make sense with Middleton and the Howard lot and all the other, you know, things that, the areas that have been going on in this area. And I also wanted to your first point, if I might real quick, the rate reduction is part of the conversation also.
Okay, yeah, and with that conversation, you know, there's nothing on Nashville.gov's website. This seems like a meeting that should be publicly noticed in that same sense, at least so that way people can see it. They have a link to be sent and not always just whichever person in the community is helping to lead that. Their list may be different than what you all are able to help and assist with. So it probably would be a good idea to, if there is that meeting, maybe schedule another meeting to discuss it as well. So that way there's a couple of opportunities for people to kind of share. You know, I've expressed interest, if possible, to share it with us. So that way we can go and hear from people, not just in this very uncomfortable setting of speaking into microphones back and forth to each other. You know, I feel like when we discussed it in March, it was the appropriate thing to do. It seems like it has been a struggle in terms of how it's been implemented. I would hope that people would be willing to not just work behind the scenes, but would do this stuff in public of what we have done. I think from the commission standpoint, we put it on our agenda, we discussed it then. It is a shame that people are obviously not always tuning into traffic and parking. I know that this is not the most fun topic, and it's hard to find information. Even if you're paying attention, it's hard to find information. So we do want to do this. Another question I do have is, you know, normally 2-hour limits are what I've seen.
Standard, yeah.
Do we have other places that we've done something like a 4-hour limit?
We have 3.
Okay.
I think if this warrants 4 and everybody is okay with that, I think this would be the first 4 hour if I'm correct. And I also wanted to just respond to you. I'm making notes for our PR teams to make sure that they communicate this out on the websites. And one of the things that kind of threw a wrench in this also is that we had this community meeting already planned to happen before the holidays, and then it got canceled, so things got moved. So that just kind of added to the frustration also. And that's one of the reasons also why this escalated to where it escalated.
Yeah, I mean, I think for now, that's the extent of where I'm at on it.
What is the feasibility of suspending the parking situation until we've had all the people heard from and input from the community?
We've kind of done that. We have done soft enforcement only with those, some mistakes that were made 4 months ago, I believe, and we took care of those situations, as Ms. Leila mentioned. We have been diligent on making sure that, you know, everybody is heard and that we are trying to do ambassadorship first and have the softer approach rather than a punishing approach. So we'll just continue to do that until we have some end goal and the light of the tunnel.
So just for clarity, right now, we're not issuing tickets for people that are parking on the street.
We are issuing warning tickets, which do not have monetary value attached to it, so it's more like an education tool. In our world, it's still a citation, it's just not a live citation, it's a warning citation.
How long are we planning to do that?
Until we come here, hopefully next month, with some of the updates for Lindsley and get those implemented. Then we would do a 2-week reset again. We do the two-week enforcement once the new signs go up, and then we'll go live with whatever was approved. That would be the ideal situation.
Okay.
And I do apologize for not informing you of the fact that this has been happening for extended period of time. I take blame in it. We should have, and I think we will moving forward. This was a really painful lesson for us to learn from, and I'm hurting, and I've been hurting pertaining to this. It hasn't been fun, so we'll try to do better.
Appreciate that. Commissioner, you have any comments?
Just a clarification question. Is the number of the parking spot keep the same, and the only change is to convert free parking to timed parking?
Yes, ma'am. We usually have a 22 feet rule for parking space, so that usually changes the same. The only thing that might occur in this situation is when we assess a new parking area, that if something doesn't have a no parking to corner sign, which there's certain rules, or from the fire hydrant, we just implement those rules also along with the paid parking. So sometimes the spaces are reduced, but those spaces technically should have been legal in the first place. They just maybe don't have the signage, or the signage got knocked down or something like that. So 99% of the time the answer is yes. It's the same.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
I'll ask this now. It was a question I was going to have on our next item of RPP, and I've tried to ask this in different ways to verify with legal in terms of, in the sense of Middleton, that was something that was brought up where there were residents on that street, and then asking if they can park on their street. Going through the rules of applying for the residential parking permit, it says that you can't park in a metered space. Is that a legal requirement, or is that just a rule that we've added to our residential parking program?
I'm gonna have to look that up, but if it's in the ordinance, then that would be a legal requirement.
And I'm not sure it's actually in the ordinance. I think the rule, like the law itself says that we can create an area. And then there's a policy in place of how we put that out there. And the policy has it, which is our policy then, that we can adjust. And so just kind of thinking through what we can do if there are other legislation that is kind of being worked on. But if it's just a policy change that we can do, I think that that's something that I would like us to consider in all of these, because, you know, obviously if you don't have parking, there should be some availability of what we can do with that. And do you want to clarify if that is a legal thing that we need to change, or if that's just our policy?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're referencing. So there is a code for downtown RPP, which states that those who do have that permit are able to park from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. in metered spaces.
No. So that section's only for the central business district.
Correct.
Well.
And since it's outside of the boundary.
Yeah, so in this sense, this would be for if there are residents in this area, can they get a residential parking permit for that street? The residential parking permit program has in its policy no parking in a metered space.
Well, yeah, I think I see what you mean. So the residential parking program applies within the parameters of the signs that say RPP. So if anything outside of that would need to be not an RPP request, it would need to be something else. So we need to look into what that means.
Yeah, and I can talk about that when we get to that item a little bit more, but that's just something of like the legalities of
Right.
that. Can we do that? Or is it just policy?
If I might, one of the things that's going to be an issue is like, such as Miss Leila, if somebody has 3 or 4 vehicles, it's always going to be an issue. So.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's just, there's multiple things in my head on that line of thinking, but would like to make sure that that's on everybody's radar of something.
What is the time and the location of the meeting tomorrow?
It's at 2 p.m. at 740 South 5th at the Director's Conference Room.
740 South 5th?
750, actually. 750 South 5th.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
750 South 5th.
What's the zip code?
37206.
I love people. I don't know if we can, I don't know if I'll try to make it, but would you mind sharing the meeting?
What does that say?
Would you mind sharing the meeting minutes from that meeting with this commission?
Yes, sir.
And provide an update on this next month as well. I think community trust and community engagement is important, and notifying and ensuring that everything is communicated is important as well. So we appreciate the information, appreciate the public coming out, voicing their concerns, and it sounds like NDOT and staff is going to make this right and get some positive answers and solutions to help you all. So the meeting's tomorrow at 2 at 750 South 5th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. We will move on to item 5.0, approval of the consent agenda. 5.1, CD 25 and 34, approval of new traffic signal at Harding Place and Belmont Park Terrace, requested by NDOT. 5.2, CD 27 and 30, approval of new speed limit in Haywood Lane, on Haywood Lane from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour between Nolensville Pike and Apache Trail, requested by NDOT. 5.3, CD 18, approval of new residential permit parking areas effective 24/7 for Paris Avenue and 10th Avenue South to 12th Avenue South and Halcyon Avenue from 11th Avenue South to 10th Avenue South, requested by Councilmember Cash. 5.2, CD 17, approval of new passenger loading zone, 15-minute time limit effective 10 a.m. to midnight, 7 days, not exceeding 200 feet in length on the north side of Enos Reed Drive and west of Fessler's Lane, requested by Hub Nashville. 5.5, CD 19, approval to reconfigure parking zones on Taylor Street as follows, requested by Historic Germantown Neighborhood Association via Hub Nashville. Add new no parking restrictions on the south side of Taylor Street between 5th Avenue North and 7th Avenue North. Remove existing no parking restrictions on the north side of Taylor Street between 5th Avenue North and 7th Avenue North. Add new no parking restrictions on both sides of Taylor Street between 7th Avenue North and Rosa Parks Boulevard. 5.6, CD 19, approval of new 24/7 passenger loading zone for up to 9 total spaces on both sides of Representative John Lewis Way South between Division Street and Lafayette Street, requested by NDOT. Are there any of these that we need to move off? Yes, Commissioner.
I'd like to remove 5.2 and 5.3, please.
Any others? Okay.
Yes,
We'll,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Chair, 5.4. Please.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve 5.1, 5.5, and 5.6?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been first and second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5.1, 5.5, and 5.6 is passed. Item 5.2, approval of new speed limit on Haywood Lane from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour between Noblesville Pike and Apache Trail, requested by NDOT. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Mason. Andrew Smith, NDOT. This request came to us via Vision Zero and our engineering team. And we have examined the roadway characteristics of Haywood Lane, between Nolensville and Apache, and using the NCHRP tool and considering the roadway characteristics, the crash history, and the context of the roadway, and we are recommending a new posted speed limit of 35 miles an hour, and this is down from 40. We did notice that the 85th percentile of speeds along this corridor is 42 miles an hour. The 50th percentile speed is 37 miles an hour. We're recommending a 35 mile an hour speed limit. Thank you.
Commissioner Corrington.
So I do want to acknowledge that, thank you for including the Vision Zero resolution within our packet. It's very helpful context. Understanding that we want to try to consider this in a sense of sound engineering judgment. You know, I do want to start, I rode this this weekend. I was kind of left with, this is an insane road to drive on. It reminds me very much of like racing. Laguna Seca has a track that there's an S curve that you go and you're driving down a S curve down a hill. And that's very much what this is. I felt like I was being pushed by people that were driving behind me as I was trying to do a safe speed. So I understand that it does appear that for some parts of this street, the percentiles are that high, the speeds that are observed. Can you provide more detail on where those measurements were taken within this 2-mile route?
I don't have the data on the tube studies that were done. I can get that to you at another meeting if you really like.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, you know, especially like as you drive this road, where the curve is, there's these big flashing lights to try to slow you down. There's a sign that says it's flashing if you're going too fast for the road. Is that a real thing? Is that active?
We do deploy radar feedback signs that will flash when you exceed the speed limit, and that's, I don't know if that's programmed for this corridor. It likely is. We did the same thing for Ewing.
Okay, yeah, and that's the, you know, thinking through, like, this is such a short segment of road. With that S-curve right in the middle of it, how much does that go into setting the limit based on the absolute ridiculousness of that versus the rest of the road itself?
The S-curve would not necessarily establish what the speed limit is, but you can do what's called a ball bank analysis, where you drive the corridor based on the posted speed limit with a measuring device to see how much does it deflect as you go through those curves. And using that device, that will help you establish an advisory speed limit plaque. I don't recall if this street has that, but I'll be looking at that to verify that we do have advanced warning signs, and this would be probably right turn signs, left turn signs and not left curve signs. But I'll check and make sure that the advisory speed plaques are consistent with something that would be based on the new speed limit.
Yeah, and that's, as I think through like what is here, There are a few other points that I'd like to make, if that's okay to get into. Sure. All right. So,
As long as it's related to this item.
it's absolutely related to this item. Another question to ask within the analysis, you know, looking at the last 3-year period with the 127 crashes reported and 51 of those being fatal or injury crashes, what is your engineering estimate of the number that will be reduced to for the future 3-year period at 35 miles an hour?
I do not have that information for you. You asked about placement of the counting devices, and that was placed at 282 Haywood Lane.
Can you show on a map where that is? And
282 Haywood Lane is in between Chambers Drive and the curve near Locust Wood. It's between Locust Wood Drive and Chambers Drive. It's more on the western half of the segment we're talking about.
Right, yeah, so like coming up to the S-curve. I mean, I think that considering this, it would be helpful for us to have not only where the locations that we measured speed were, what are, I think there's a position on here that's telling us how many cars are on this street, and that's closer to where the highway is. But I think also showing where our crashes are. You know, we don't have any sort of insight into seeing that right now, where these deaths have occurred and where our injury crashes are occurred, kind of highlighting that for us. So the other thing that struck me in terms of thinking about this from a safety perspective, with this many crashes, with this many fatal ones that are also pedestrian related, you know, I was kind of thinking through, you know, obviously what is going to be asked of us is outside of our purview, but what can be done on the street is related to that. And so thinking about how we prioritize what we're going to do on this street in terms of safety, you know, I looked through the capital improvement requests, and there was an item in there to try to make this a complete street. Thinking through Chime and Choose How You Move, it seems like this is the perfect example of this should be a complete street that would then have a different design speed. 2 parts on that. The first piece was the department's response in terms of that request is a request for a sidewalk, dedicated bike lane, and a bus stop shelter on both ends. It is the walk and bike priority score is 50 and not on our priority list. Haywood Lane is 2 miles in length, requires a moderate amount of stormwater infrastructure and a moderate amount of right-of-way acquisition. So it sounds like this street isn't a priority in terms of creating a safer pedestrian biking experience currently. And also, within the Chime program, on the map that's available to the public, you can go on there and click it and try to see where there's existing sidewalk and where there should be future sidewalk. And I would think that this would be a prime example of a place we're building a massive bus lane on Nolensville. We would probably connect it with a sidewalk that would help us have a faster design speed on the street. But it says that there's existing sidewalk there. There's existing sidewalk for like 2 blocks. So did we create Chime with inconsistent data on the street to then say that we're not going to do future pedestrian safety here? So it's not prioritized, it's not on Chime. Are we not going to do anything at the street?
I would like to remind the commissioner that this item is about speed limit.
Speed limits that are related to the pedestrian and
That's correct.
experience.
And the other improvements would be something that's not on this agenda today.
Okay, and so my decision in how I want to vote about this is related to what the cycling and walking infrastructure on this street is. So I'm going to discuss those and the department's prioritization around it in terms of what I think the safe speed should be. I don't know where any of these crashes are happening. We have a discussion of where we did a meter, but not shown to us. At best case, this should be deferred. But I would like us to see, are we actually going to do anything here? Or are we going to set a speed that is a minor reduction based on what's already happening out there with absolutely no plans to do anything for anybody else?
So Commissioner, I have Val with the Vision Zero program here with me. My name is Brad Freeze. I'm the Deputy Director of the Nashville DOT. So we are actually looking at alternatives out here to improve. In addition to the posted speed limit, we are looking at other mitigating strategies to do in the short term. Long term, as you said, looking through there, this is a corridor that will require extensive stormwater rework and drainage. So right now we currently are not funded to accomplish that. However, we are recognizing that there are safety issues out there, and then we're looking at mitigate those through other strategies in the interim. But I have Val here with me to talk a little bit about some of those activities.
Thank you. Val Martinez, planner and Vision Zero coordinator with NDOT. I did want to talk about the additional improvements that are happening along the corridor outside of the proposed reduction. We are looking at installing raised pavement markers, speed radar feedback signage, rumble strips, including turn hardening and delineation at intersections. These are all considered quick builds, and while they don't necessarily provide pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure, we do hope in the future to look at funding opportunities, but as it stands, we are seeking just short-term or quick build opportunities.
Is turn hardening just a guardrail?
No, so that would look like paint and delineation, essentially changing the turning radius for the vehicles. At intersections, it would create a shorter crossing distance for pedestrians.
So hardening from it's a more difficult activity in a car, not necessarily protecting what happens outside of it.
Correct.
I'll let other people speak for now if they want.
You have comments?
Thank you, Chair. So, when a lot of these have come before the commission, minor speed reductions, and there's always a lot of discussion. I love that a lot of things are being worked on outside of just the speed reduction. I wonder if somebody could speak to how does a minor speed reduction, so in this case going from 40 to 35, how would that impact our ability to deliver some of those other changes to the street? Because I've got the last 2 years of crash data pulled up on the MNPD map here, and it looks pretty frightening.
You're asking as far as what the speed reduction, how that impacts other mitigation strategies that we would do?
Does that impact our ability to deliver the other mitigation strategies?
No, sir. No, Commissioner, it would not impact our ability to deliver other mitigation strategies on there.
Okay, so it's not like the traffic calming program where the steeper differential between the posted speed and the measured speed.
The volume, yes. So the volumes on this street are over the threshold for vertical measures right now, if that's what you're referring to. However, we are looking at other alternatives. That's why we talked about the rumbles. Actually, we're looking at standards that are used on the freeway system that are actually more substantial and hold up with higher ADTs. So we're actually looking at other alternatives for that. We're also looking at the possibility in the future of other vertical measures that hold up under higher ADT values.
Thank you. And I mean, the closest parallel that I can find in the area that I represent would be the 65 and Trinity and how that kind of feeds over to Gallatin. Now, this is a 2-lane road, so it's kind of a different context, but we've looked really closely at trying to improve safety there at Trinity and 65 and Dickerson and through to Gallatin. It would be great to lower the speed limit 5 miles an hour between the interstate and Dickerson there, but without actual visual cues from for drivers that, hey, you're done being on the interstate now. This is a neighborhood. There's driveways. I do think that I support lowering the speed limit. I would be curious, what is staff's position on 30 versus 35, and why did we land on 35 rather than 30?
I'm sorry, but We established 35 as the recommended speed limit based on NDOT's policies on setting speed limits on similar roads. We followed the same exact policy when we determined a new speed limit for Ewing Drive.
And that would be based on percentile study in reference to the NCHRP tool that we've talked about here before this commission, looking at best practices across the country as far as establishing those limits based on what is reasonable in terms of enforcement activities along that corridor, but also the differences in the percentile speeds that people are actually driving on that corridor. And based on the context, I'll say this, the NCHRP tool looks at the cross-section, looks at the context of the situation when it's in a rural location, an urban location, a suburban location, and it comes up with a recommendation based on that. The previous was actually based on just solely the 85th percentile. This NCHRP tool actually accommodates other context situations that we look at.
Okay, so the context that I see here from the images is like, it really looks like kind of a, like a septic suburb, 2-lane road, but, then it's got Nolensville and the interstate on each side of this little stretch. So I guess it sounds like y'all take that into account, but I wonder, as we're pursuing all these other things that will improve safety, like what impact would a 30-mile-an-hour posted limit have on pursuing those other safety improvements versus a 35-mile-an-hour posted speed limit?
So as we've done before in other corridors, when we've lowered the speed limit, we look at those percentiles, look at what the average speeds are on the corridors. We have to consider the context, like you said, of the street, of the cross section. So what impact would you're asking the question? What impact would doing 5 mile an hour less have on the corridor? Well, we also have to consider people traveling on the street and what is reasonable as far as I shouldn't say reasonable, what is feasible for them when we're enforcing it, so we're not, going out there and lowering it, 15 miles an hour lower or wherever like that in a situation where we're actually going to be seen as just writing tickets, or out there enforcing it erroneously. So that's kind of why we look at what the average speeds are in there, but that also considers the context of the situation as well, what's built into the NCHRP tool.
And I think if you're doing a more significant reduction and it's like in tandem with all these visual cues and things that sort of indicate to people that, hey, you're done being on the interstate, you're not quite to Nolensville yet, or vice versa, or however, like the more we can do to like show people that you're in the middle of a neighborhood now, I think the safer it is to reduce that speed further, which is, in this context, I think ultimately, I feel like 30 is a lot more appropriate than 35, but I understand, the factors that have led y'all to recommend 35 rather than 30. But I do think, looking at this context, it's a very narrow road, tons of driveways, tons of crashes at these intersections. So like what we have is not working, and I think we need to move maybe a little more aggressively away from the status quo. So I'll listen to other comments and whatnot from commissioners.
Anything else from commissioners? Ms. Holler?
Thank you, Chair Mason. And I want to dovetail on Councilmember Parker's comments. I had the same question. What was the rationale behind NDOT's recommendation to go from 40 to 35 versus to 30? And in that, you've already answered that, thank you. But in that same context, what is the rationale for not going from 35 to 30? You've given us why we're going from 40 to 35, but why are we not going to 30? And what consideration, or do you support the data that was provided by our speaker earlier regarding the decrease in fatalities and injuries based on that 5 mile per hour increment.
So I will say that the crashes that you mentioned are actually factored into the NSRP tool as well, the crash rate for that section. So that does go into the consideration as well in there. But your question is why do we not consider moving it from 40 to 30, the 10 mile an hour reduction instead of?
Yes, and in that, and also, Mr. Freeze, does NDOT support the data that was brought forward from the speaker regarding the differential that 5 miles per hour would provide in saving lives?
You're talking about the impacts at 35 versus 30 miles an hour?
Yes.
We do support the data as far as slower speeds do create less severe incidents, correct?
Yes, but the specific data that was presented by Vision Zero to the commission today, that where she spoke, Ms. Levitt, I believe, gave us the data on that particular, in this case, that particular 5 mile per hour reduction, the impact, the result of that in terms of saving lives and crashes.
That is correct. So the lower the speed, realistically, the severity of the crash could potentially be lessened, but ultimately it comes down to the design of the roadway. We could change the speed to anything. The reason that we stuck with the 35 mile per hour recommendation was based on the NCHRP tool. So that is all based off of national best practice and guidance. It ultimately, if we see a greater change to the design, we could reevaluate this corridor for a greater reduction. But at the moment, with the short-term implementations and the cross-section as it is, the tool is providing us with a 35 mile per hour recommendation.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Just a real simple request. And I get that this is not going to come off great, but could you provide us the inputs to the tool to get us down to 35? That's what you have put in there. And then show us the variables that change to then show us what a 30 mile an hour out of our spreadsheet tool will show us.
We can provide you that background. We can provide you the input that we put into the tool, and we can provide you the study that was a result of the tool. Yes, we can. We absolutely can provide that to you.
Right. And then also, the thing that I would like to see is what variables change and how much would they need to change for the tool output
to recommend a 30 mile an hour speed?
Yes, which appears to be the department's stance, that the only way that they will suggest going down to a lower speed is if this tool shows us that it says we can do that. So I'd like to see what variables could be adjusted. And so if that is realistic, that's what I would like to see us speak to is, do we think any of these things will change? I think Councilman Parker was kind of talking about that too of, is it just the percentile speeds? If there's percentile speeds go down enough, can we see that variable of how much that would go down? Can we see at, like, bicycle activity, not high, any type? It's not in there. Great. So what do we have to send the bicyclists out there to then change the variable to show you that this should go down to 30 miles an hour? Is that what we need to try to do?
Are you asking for over time? What?
I would like to see the variables change on the tool. Can I play with the tool? Can I have access to it? To
Absolutely.
Then go
it's
into
public. Yes.
Great. So then we can kind of do that to say, here's what we think as this board, not just the engineering judgment of what you have put in there, but also what we think may change, may look different, looking at legal to try to see if that's okay. But in general.
Well, do you have an engineering degree?
I do.
Civil engineer, traffic engineering?
I do. I'm not a professional engineer, so I cannot speak as a professional engineer. But the purpose of this board is to hear from professional engineers and then set a speed. If it was only required to have professional engineers do the speed study, this board wouldn't exist. This board would be illegal. So this board exists to be able to set the speed. If you don't need my input to set the speed, then don't bring it to us. But you're bringing it to us. So I would like to help see what variables could potentially change.
Well, I think, are you licensed as a traffic engineer?
No.
Okay. So here's, I think the issue is, and we've explained this before, is that the courts, when they look at your decision, are gonna look at what was the basis for your decision.
And why would we be sued over this decision?
We get sued over all kinds of decisions.
Why would we get sued over the speed limit going 5 miles an hour lower than we projected based on this tool?
I don't necessarily know. I could give you some examples if you would like them.
Are engineers allowed to make their own judgment when doing this, or do they only ever have to use the tool? They don't.
No,
I don't need an answer from that. You don't.
Okay.
Like, you can use the tool. That should be the basis of the decision. But you can also use your engineering judgment to create a different, and then the PE stamp is who is then accepting responsibility for that. Is that correct?
I would assume so, but if you're an engineer and you can't stand behind the data because you've kind of juked the stats based on what you want it to be, then it's not actually good data. And if you know that, then why would you stamp it?
They can design it correctly to get down to what they're looking for.
So if I may, please state your name for the record.
Sure, Hal
and then
Balthrop,
we're going to wrap this up.
Sorry.
Chair, can I also remind you that there's a Robert's rule about civility and the process and the order?
Yes.
Okay, Hal Balthrop, NDOT. Just to address something, so I was on the state licensing board for engineers for 8 years. Engineers are licensed for a variety of reasons, one of which is to demonstrate competency in the area of practice and in the opportunity as needed to affect their license under malpractice. So when you don't have licensed individuals making public health and safety decisions, it can run into some challenges in terms of liability. So again, the tools that we use are industry best practices. And by virtue of that and our consistency in applying those tools helps us protect the public on basis of science and research and evidence of practice. But it also protects the city of Nashville from the potential for liability as a result of getting outside of those standard practices. So I just want to remind everyone that there are reasons there are licenses for certain activities as it affects public health. I was in the water sector, same thing applies there for public water systems. And that's why licensure is so important, and we have to take care that we alter the best practices of things that affect public health and safety.
And just a quick follow-up. I am not saying that we don't need licenses, and I'm not saying that the expertise isn't needed. I am saying that I believe in you all to be able to design streets to a level that creates safety, because in the sense, there were 2 people that died last year. There isn't a liability on that because it was designed within the best practices, right? That's what we're saying. We're okay with 2 people dying on the street due to the best practices that were involved previously. We should be able to also find a way to push forward.
So I don't
Are
know
you
that
saying,
that's
are you saying, Commissioner, that we're okay that someone died on the street?
Are we
That's,
designing?
that's very disrespectful for us and our staff to actually, for you to
Chair,
insinuate that we're okay.
Reminder that under Robert's rules, it's supposed to be a civil discourse. I don't know that accusing someone of being okay with murder or with people dying is civil.
So let's backtrack. Let's hold tight. So I think the basis of this right now is there's feelings that it should be 30 instead of 35. NDOT has presented the data and done the research to support reducing the speed limit 5 miles per hour. In my opinion, I feel like a reduction at all is helpful, whether it's 5, 10, or 20. So I think the work has been done. You've gone out and you've done the research. You all analyzed it and has acknowledged that a reduction needs to be made. So I think 40 to 35 we need to vote on, and then if we need to continue the conversation around looking at getting it down to 30, I think that's a conversation that could be requested or asked of you all to say, hey, let's get this down from 40 to 35 now to improve the speed limit on this road. and then come back to us with some specific input or data around yes or no on a 30. I don't think nobody in here wants anything to happen to people. Pedestrian safety is paramount, and it is frustrating that there's specific tools and things that have to be used, and it's not just as, we can just get it down to whatever we want to. I understand the frustration there. But right now here before us, they are suggesting that we reduce it from 40 to 35, which I think will help the street now. If, as this body, we want to ask them to give us a timeline on the other improvements that you talked about, the quick projects or the
Quick build implementation.
the quick build implementation to reevaluate a 30, is that something that you all can do for us? Okay, I'm going to close the comments and ask for a motion on reducing the speed limit from 40 to 35.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. You got a question? Go ahead.
What type of a time frame would be needed to come back with information?
Great question.
For the change from 35 down to 30?
Realistically, the tool won't provide a different outcome until a lot of those variables have significantly changed. So that would be looking at things like the cross-section of the roadway, as well as the 85th and 50th percentiles. All of those, the criteria that was passed around on the paper, if we come back in 6 months, a year from now, without drastically changing the characteristics of the roadway, we're going to keep coming up with the same recommendation of 35.
So what we have right now, going from 40 down to 35, is that going to decrease the likelihood of the accidents that we're seeing in the data that is available to us now?
That is our hope.
Best practice actually says so, yes. That's what our expectation is.
So 2 months? 3, how much time?
What she's saying is, until we make some actually physical infrastructure changes on the street, it's more than likely that the tool is going to recommend the same speed, 35 miles.
My last
Yes.
question is, how long will it take to make those modifications? And what kind of a timeline is necessary to make those things happen?
Now, when you say infrastructure, do you mean like increasing the storm and sewer, or are we just talking
Yes.
the quick build projects?
No, we're not talking, when I say infrastructure, the quick build is a part of that, of a larger strategy. But when I say infrastructure, I mean actually changing it. Like, for example, Commissioner Cordell talks about a complete street for this corridor, actually changing the geometry, adding curbs, right now we have no curbs on here, adding curbs, adding medians, things that take time and right away actually to accomplish.
Well, the 5
Quick
mile an
builds
hour.
can be completed within a few months, I would say. But anything like the larger scale capital projects, there is no available funding or prioritization at the moment, so we cannot provide a timeline for sidewalks or bikeways or any type of complete street.
Can you, yes?
I was going to suggest that we amend our motion to include an update to the commission 6 months from now, and that's just me kind of pulling a number out of, based on the conversation of sounds like 3 would be too little.
Commissioner, I think it is definitely in order for us to come back and provide results as far as as far as quick builds and what we've done, but also showing what the performance of the road is like after the reduction in those quick builds. So yes, I would think we, as part of our SOP, our standard operating procedure for speed reductions, we do after action studies or after deployment studies in there. So I think it would definitely be in order for us to come back and share with you the results and what has happened as far as speed on the road, but also what has happened as far as our mitigation strategies and how successful they've been.
Would you mind amending the motion?
Yes, sir. So I'll amend the motion to approve staff's recommendation to reduce from 40 to 35, and to request that staff put this item back on the agenda and provide us an update at the August, that'd be 6 months from now, August meeting of the Traffic and Parking Commission.
Second. Oh, please.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Five point five, approval to reconfigure parking zones on Taylor Street as follows, requested by Historic Germantown Neighborhood Association via Hub Nashville. Mr. Smith, you got any comments?
Mr. Chair, I think 5.3 was not passed.
Sorry,
on
yeah,
the consent agenda.
yes. I looked at my dots are the ones that we pulled off. Sorry, so 5.3, approval of new residential permit parking areas effective 24/7 for Paris Avenue from 10th Avenue South to 12th Avenue South and Halcyon Avenue from 11th Avenue South to 10th Avenue South, requested by Councilmember Cash. You have the floor.
I think somebody pulled it down from consent with request to have some questions. I'm ready to answer any questions.
Mr. Kornick, I believe did you request this one?
I did, sure. So, couple of quick questions. Understanding that this kind of came out of the 12 South meetings in terms of parking, I was able to attend one of those. For these specific streets, and I think the council member had spoken to this being a point of frustration as well, but how many signatures have we received?
It's 75% of the street.
How many specific signatures did we receive on each of these street segments?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact count. It was 3 pages.
It was multiple pages. I have copies of the petitions. I did not include those in the staff report because the petitions have personally identifiable information and people's driver's license numbers. The threshold for approval is 75% consensus for, and we are well above 75%.
So, what, in that sense, when you sign the petition, do you say yes or no? Is that what's on this petition?
Yes or no, or for or against?
Can we, so there's no summary of numbers on that? And I thought it was just you sign the petition. Like, there's no.
So the petition needs to be, on the petition you have the house numbers, and then the ones that are on the petition themselves are the ones that are for the RPP. And so the ones that would not be in favor of the residential parking program, they would not sign it, correct? And so when the analysis is done, the houses are counted, and if houses, 1,001 to 1,010 have 9 signatures, that means that 75% have been in favor of the RPP for that street.
Okay, and so right now in this meeting, we don't have that information to provide to us of what the total number of homes on each street is, and then the total number of homes that had residents respond to it. We're just saying we think it's over 75%.
We haven't been asked this question before, so we didn't have this ready. We can bring it next time.
Okay. Yeah. There's a couple of other questions, if that's okay. And this is part of I'll put it out there that, I think that the commission probably hasn't done a good enough job of trying to improve on the RPP. It's RPP, right? Because it's Residential Parking Program, not RPP program. So we haven't done enough to improve upon it. And the thing that concerns me the most in trying to approve these is you only have to go and get 3 items out of 7. Which 3 were approved for this?
Multiple. This is quality of life. Actually, I have the note here. Scarcity of convenient off-street park. I'm sorry. Substantial use of neighborhood curb space by commuters. Quality of life issues such as bad limited to trash from other vehicles. Disruption during evening, 10 p.m. or public service garage disruptions. Proximity to major parking attractors. Traffic noise. So it had more than 3. And to your point, we have done a lot of work on RPP. We have revised the code. We have new things that are going to play. It's currently with legal for legal review, and we're looking into implementing changes in the near future.
And I think that that's where, like, these things aren't necessarily in the code, correct? These are things that are created in the policy. And so these 7 things have so much overlap that you can use the same underlying issue to then say the same thing multiple times. So from my experience of going to here, like, I totally believe that there is probably a scarcity of on-street parking at high times of usage, whether there's restaurants in place or people are shopping. But I went there at 8 in the morning this morning and it's completely empty. So in terms of the residents needing parking at the same time that my day was starting, it seems like there wasn't an issue. There's what appears to be a plethora of off-street parking available in this area due to the fact that every single one of these houses has an alley, plus they have access on the street itself. And that's where I think that I'm not supportive of approving this today due to the fact that those things exist. And I think that this should be a weighted kind of view, not necessarily a just pick 3. I think that certain things should be weighted more. If you don't have actual off-street parking available, that should be weighted more than the twofold fact of, are there places for people to go around you, and also does that create traffic? Well, of course, they both do the same thing.
Well, if I might respond just real quick, there is, as Councilmember Cash mentioned, this is part of a larger plan. There is going to be changes that will come to 12 South itself. There's a problem with employees parking in the right-of-way. We're addressing that also. We spoke to the operators to help with parking for the employees. The problem is that residents have an issue parking in front of their houses, or it's really loud, or somebody is blocking their driveway. And so we've cited, for example, one of the current streets that is also equally utilized and abused as the ones that we are currently proposing to get RPP. We've cited, I think, 370 citations in the past year, and it hasn't moved the needle. It still needs something additional to make it better. And so us making these streets RPP will help us push those out that don't need to be there to the streets or the parking garages and these RPPs. And there will be more that will come for this area, help achieve that goal.
Yeah, and I would be supportive if we could do paid parking on these streets plus residential. And that is something that's within the policy that says that we can't actually do that on the same street. And that seems to solve both problems at the same time of, we need to have more enforcement. We need to have a way to encourage people to not park here all day. We need to have a way of making sure that visitors can come. That is a question that I have is, we're setting a limit that says no visitors 24/7. Where did that come from? Why aren't we allowing, there's other streets in 12 South that we allow 2-hour parking.
It's just because of the severity of the issue, and to your point, I understand what you're saying. I think it's a little different when somebody's in an apartment and somebody is in a house. I necessarily wouldn't want somebody constantly rotating around my house after 10 p.m. when my kids are sleeping. And so that's what happens when you have a RPP in front of your house that is also paid parking, is that after 10 p.m. you can just have anybody come anytime. You have lights on all the time, you have music blasting, you have people come and go, you hear the doors being closed or quality of life issue altogether. So I understand what you're saying. I just don't know if RPP and paid parking kind of would work together. I think other initiatives might work better in the RPP zone.
And I think that as you think through that process in terms of places that are actually doing that, look to Washington, D.C. They've rolled out dual zones. One side of the street is residential, one side of the street is paid parking. They seem, my discussions with them seem to enjoy it. They seems to be working pretty well. So reach out to some of your colleagues around the country to see how this is working, because I think it does work. I think most of these people that live in this area, they live there for a certain reason. 12 South is a fantastic place to live. It is incredibly walkable. They are walking and being a part of that community and going to those businesses too. So they totally understand that this is a place that has this activity. So, I think that that's the thing that they accept, and we shouldn't just block off anybody from parking on the street outside of the people that are the property owners.
To be fair, when most of these people purchased the house, the situation wasn't as dire as it is today. So, I mean, things escalated, businesses grew, the street grew itself, there's more and more businesses opening every time. There's only a one-laner in each direction on 12 South on the main corridor, so there is just too many cars, too many businesses, and it's creating a problem to where it's dislocating the parkers that are there short-term into residential areas, and then they have a problem despite living there. So I understand what you're saying, and I promise you we're looking into this, and some of the changes that we are implementing hopefully will yield the results that we want. If they don't, then we'll be back here proposing something that is better or something that is being used somewhere else also. And we have looked at it as well. I don't think at this point we're ready for an RPP mixed with paid parking. That doesn't mean that 6 months from now we won't be.
And then also I will add, the bullet points that he mentioned actually are in the code 1242-030. The scarcity of convenient off-street parking to extent that the motor vehicle is registered to persons residing in the residential area cannot accommodate by the number of available off-street parking spaces, and substantial use of the neighborhood curb space by commuters, et cetera. All of that is actually in the code.
Yeah, and that's, and the 3 is in the code? Are you in the code right now?
Yeah, it's 1242-030.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been a really good discussion. I kind of share some of the hesitations about RPP as it's currently construed in Nashville, both kind of philosophically and practically. But I also, having represented an area that utilized RPP to solve some, not necessarily solve, but severely mitigate some issues that were leading to like a lot of conflict in the area between visitors and residents and staff. And, it's not perfect, but I don't think that, as we're looking to address sort of these issues that we can let the perfect be the enemy of the good in this case. I think this program does need to be overhauled. I am very interested in further exploration of sort of like a hybrid RPP paid system for certain areas. I think that could work really well because really what people in my area, like where we utilized it, what they get annoyed with is when the same car might be out there for 2 days. And, it's nobody knows, no neighbors know who it is, and it's where somebody always parks, and it becomes a source of tension. But if there's turnover, I don't think folks would be as concerned about having visitors parking in their area. We don't currently have that option. I think that would be a better option, but I don't want to kind of hold back on this neighborhood from being able to address some very real issues. We've got the councilman here expressing that, that these are real issues that they're trying to address with this. So I'll be in support of this today, but I do want us certainly by the end of this council term to overhaul RPP. We've been talking about it since I think late last term. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing that.
Understood, thank you.
One more question.
Just a clarification on the code. That's in there in the sense that the engineer should refer to them. It is not in there in the sense of requiring 3. So 3 is something that's within our policy. And that's where I'm just saying, like, if those things are in the code, we have to consider that. I would just like to see it weighted as we move forward. So that way there are differences in those pieces. And you have to get a total score potentially in terms of just 3 of them.
To your point, the revision of the code also yielded a revision of the application. So that's already kind of been worked on, and it's going to be part of the revision. And to your point, Mr. Parker, I 100% agree with what you're saying, and also you, Mr. Kornutnik. The only thing is I think there is a room and place for it, and I think that's coming because we have to mirror cities that are growing the same, and we are growing. I just think for 12 South specifically, that's not the solution right now. It might be a different RPP zone somewhere else, but could be totally okay with that. I don't think 12 South is that location, is what I'm trying to get to. That doesn't mean that things will not change. It doesn't mean that it cannot be implemented as a pilot somewhere else. I just don't think 12 South is that location right now, as of today. We'll see once these larger changes that we are taking taking into consideration implementing. Hopefully they'll have some good results, and we'll be able to use that as a stepping stool to move forward with something better and greater as our program evolves.
Mr. Smith?
I'd like to answer Commissioner Kornitek's question about numbers of signatures on petitions. Halcyon Avenue between 11th and 10th has 18 residential properties. 14 persons signed the petition that was presented from Councilmember Cash. I omitted duplicate signatures so that if you have a home where there are 3 persons living there, they don't get 3 votes. But each parcel counts as a vote. And in that case, there was 14 out of 18 that signed the petition. Presumably, there could have been 18 out of 18. I don't know. I'm just based on the petition that's submitted.
And that, just to clarify, the way that the code is written is a resident is any person living in the proposed permit parking area with a valid Tennessee driver's license showing an address within the RPP area, who also owns or leases a motor vehicle. So you can't vote against this if you don't own a motor vehicle, which is interesting. So 75% of residents doesn't necessarily limit it to the specific household. That may be something that we have been doing.
And each person did they did list the driver's license number.
Right, yeah, I see that. But I'm just saying, like, reducing the number of people that signed it, the 75%, as I read this code, appears to be of everybody that lives there. So if there are 5 people living in a house, it is 5 residents, not 1 house.
Well,
you limit them to per house anyway, right?
So there is a self-limiting option to that, in that the space the street has, or the RPP zone has as many spaces as it allows, and it's first come, first serve. So even if they get, let's not forget that people can still get visitor permits and short-term permits on top of their annual permits. So that's also in play. And so you might end up in a situation where somebody might have three children, and they come with 5 cars and they have 7 permits, but they only have space for 3 because everybody else is utilizing it. It's first come, first serve. They will need to park somewhere else. So RPP is first come, first serve. It's always been like that, and it doesn't guarantee a parking space. That's what garages would do. So parking in the RPP zone is really just, without payment, you're able to be there as long as you're within the zone that is signed for RPP.
Commissioner Holler, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. This is my first time through this process, so I appreciate your patience with a couple of my questions. Am I interpreting this map correctly, that the existing RPP that are noted here on Halcyon is just for that street, or are there other RPPs in place in 12th South neighborhood?
That's just that section. There's a existing RPP section in Halcyon already, so this is the remaining one that applied with the petition. And so
Right.
this would, yes,
Right,
ma'am.
Okay. So are there other RPPs on either side of 12 South, east and west throughout the neighborhood?
There's another existing RPP on Dallas, and there are some other RPP streets that are outside of the area that I zoomed in on. I didn't include those because those are a couple of blocks away, but these are not the only RPP streets in the neighborhood.
Okay. So do we know how many spaces this in total will convert to restricted exclusive parking?
We could count the number of houses and give you that data, but not.
Oh, I'm
again,
sorry, not the number of homes, but the number of spaces.
It won't be the number of spaces because you cannot block a driveway. So even though there are 18 residences, on the new part of Halcyon, for example, that doesn't mean that there's 18 or 36 spaces. It's just however many you can fit in there without blocking a driveway or without parking within 30 feet of a crosswalk or a stop sign, et cetera.
Sure, or hydrant, right. Yeah, I totally get that. I'm just trying to get a context around how many parking spaces are we shifting from open to the public to 24/7 restricted use, exclusive to residents on not only these blocks, but on other blocks in the neighborhood?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure if you looked at it that way. So this would be something that we need to do. We have the footage in some instances of the street, then we divide it by 22, but to the points that were mentioned here earlier, the driveways are not included in that. If there's a 30 feet to the corner or fire hydrant, that would not be included in that. So it might not be accurate, but we don't have that data on us today.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. Thank you. One other question, as you all go through, you mentioned some updates and improvements that you're looking at the entire program and perhaps rehauling it at council and so forth. I drove the area on Saturday intentionally during peak demand. What would be, it was a beautiful day, lots of people were out, it was very bustling. And this street, the block that is currently under RPP had many, many open spaces. The block that was not was packed to the gill. I mean, so much so you couldn't even get down the street. And you can see that in this visual here. It's extremely difficult. I mean, in fact, I had to stop twice to cars. I mean, it was so congested because you couldn't even get two cars through here on Saturday afternoon. Cars had to stop and back up and weave to get, so that's kind of a separate issue, but I did want to make note of that. So my question is, as we kind of evaluate this program, is there a process to evaluate usage? So we restrict we restrict this block, or blocks in this case, for the public to use, but are those who are entitled to use it actually using it? And I think as we move forward and evaluate this program, I would like to suggest that we look at that as well. So demand versus, what does the dashboard look like, no pun intended, but on usage for those who do receive the permits. On Saturday, I can tell you, there were a lot of cars circling that would have loved to use those spaces that were sitting empty.
And so one of the things that happens, and this is the same for the paid parking stuff, is if you have an area that is free parking, it's just going to migrate everybody who is able to park there to that area.
Sure.
So once this loop is closed, that's going to really show. And what might happen, with all honesty, and we're expecting that to occur, that's why Mr. Cash mentioned a zone, is that this might just shift somebody to the next street, and then they will get an RPP. And so at some point, there's not going to be anywhere else to go but the parking lot. So
Right.
and that's the goal, pretty
Yes,
much.
and I like Commissioner's idea of looking at a combination of paid and RPP, even within the same block, if that's the best practice in other cities. It seems like we should look at
Yes, ma'am.
that. And, you know, we've got other mixed-use areas that we have implemented paid parking where there's probably more residents than there are on these two streets. So I think all that needs to be considered.
Understood.
Any other questions, comments? We have a motion.
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
It is passed. Item 5.4, CD 17, approval of new passenger loading zone, 15-minute time limit, effective 10 a.m. to midnight, 7 days to midnight, 7 days a week, not exceeding 200 feet in length on the north side of Enos Reed Drive and west of Fessler's Lane, requested via Hub Nashville. Ms. Holler, I believe you pulled this off. You got some?
I did. Just a quick clarification question. As I read through the analysis, it appears that Enos, am I saying right? Enos Reed Drive is just 2-lane.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. It is, there are no longitudinal pavement markings. The pavement width is like 38 to 40 feet. It's very, very wide. There are some truck parking lots or terminals down to the to the west of here. But yes, the lanes are, it's just a two-lane road.
Okay, and with no sidewalks, if I read that correctly?
That's correct. There's no sidewalk. This is the business operative for this property asked if they could have a designated passenger loading zone so they can have their ride shares basically come in and pick up and drop off Enos Reed instead of Fessler's, which is what they were doing. And we don't want them to stop on Fessler's to unload. There's no sidewalk there either, and there's an entrance for pedestrians to enter the facility off of Enos Reed.
Right, I see all that. Thank you, Mr. Smith. What is the speed limit on Enos Reed?
Don't recall. I don't think there is a speed limit that's posted on this segment of Enos Reed.
And the reason for my question is there would be a loading zone with no cutout. Is that correct?
That's correct. There'd be no cutout involved.
Okay, so passengers who exiting or entering the ride share would be doing so in the lane of traffic?
That's correct. They're doing that right now.
As approved or just as behavior?
That's the behavior. They're currently being dropped off. I won't say they're all being dropped off on Fessler's, but the business has asked their guests to use Enos Reed for their ride share needs, but some are using Fessler's, and that's a much higher traffic volumes and higher speeds on Fessler's. There's not a lot of speed on Enos Reed. You can't see on the little map there, but Enos Reed takes a hard 90-degree turn on Paris, and it doesn't extend. It's not a through street there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. I tried to study that on Google Map before the meeting. Certainly, we don't want them on Fessler's. I get that. I was concerned about the commission approving a loading zone where the passengers would be exiting and entering in the lane of travel without knowing what the speed limit is on that roadway.
Just a quick clarification. If you're on the street view, you can see the 25-mile-an-hour sign.
Oh, it's 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
And correct Google if it's wrong, but it looks like the width of this street is about 38 to 40 feet.
That's about right. I
Okay.
measured it a month or two ago, but it's a very wide street.
Okay.
So even if they were dropped off on the street, there should be plenty of extra space for people to safely pass around.
And the recommendation to limit it to no more than 200 feet is just so that I can get them away from the intersection of Enos Reed and Fessler's, where I do anticipate turning truck traffic, and I don't want to have vehicles along the curb that's close to the intersection.
So given all those factors, thereby you all are recommending approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Another, normally it's a sign that we put out for these. Are you going to mark it at all?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, great.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
I move for approval as recommended by NDOT staff for the passenger loading zone.
We have a second? First and second, any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Item 6.0, regular agenda. 6.1, recommendation to council regarding Metro Council Ordinance BL 206-1255 related to sandwich board signage requested by County Clerk's Office, the Metropolitan Clerk's Office. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, Commissioner, I am Brad Freese. I am the Deputy Director of the Nashville Department of Transportation. This is a legislation submitted by Councilmember Huff. We've been coordinating with him for the past over a month now, actually. The original version we had some concern with, so working with him, we found this version acceptable. It actually provides a zone within the downtown area to restrict where sandwich boards can actually be placed. So we are in support currently of the way this is written. This we're bringing this before you because it, as will be recommended, or it has been recommended, excuse me, by council to the Traffic and Parking Commission, because this actually would involve edits to the portion that traffic and parking actually is responsible for in the code. So we have put it on the agenda in advance of actually coming back before council, so you'll have time to think. It's not necessary for you to vote on it today, but we wanted to present it on it as an introduction.
Thank you. And yeah, thank y'all for bringing this to us, to give us a little time to think about it before it's a do or die moment. My initial thought about just how, I experience sandwich boards in the world is the thing that I find concerning, obviously, anytime they're blocking, and I see we have in this, language that it can't narrow the sidewalk below 5 foot. So I'm glad that's in there. But sometimes folks place them close to intersections, close to ingress and egress points. The operator of the courthouse parking garage does that pretty frequently, and it can be difficult to see when you're making the left turn out of that garage. So I wondered if we, and maybe if the sponsor is listening to this meeting, he would consider a friendly amendment to include a prohibition on, 20 feet, 30 feet, whatever's reasonable from an ingress egress point.
Councilmember, absolutely. I think we would, as part of our oversight, we would be checking that too in the field. But I do think that amendment would be favorable and improve this bill.
It may be covered by another code provision, but I think putting it in.
Yeah, for site triangles at that, I believe it would be covered as part of that, but I don't see any conflict there.
Okay, thank you.
And you spoke to the inclusion of an area where this would be prohibited. In terms of having all of these specifics of where you can and cannot place it, can you speak to why you're looking to have that prohibited area as well?
Absolutely. So the area, the prohibited area is actually the same area as our sidewalk vending area. So if you recall, a couple of years ago on this commission, we went through the process of putting in place legislation that would restrict sidewalk vending in that downtown zone for the purpose of providing enough capacity on the sidewalk. So we are actually using the same exclusion zone as for sidewalk and vending.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I would be supportive of not necessarily having an exclusion zone on this, just from a perspective of, I see sidewalk vending as a different issue, and I think we could revisit some of that too. But I also see a board as, it's a single board. A vendor is there, they're supposed to be having customers, it's supposed to be filling up more of the space versus just a specific, here's a board that's gonna be in the way for a small period, but it's not gonna expand beyond that with customers that are gonna be lined up around it.
I understand the subtleties that you're pointing out. However, with legal's advisement, I will ask for them to talk about how we restrict the sidewalk for one, but not the other. It could be problematic.
Okay, so I was on medical leave when all this was being done, but I will try to give you the kind of short and skinny of why I think it could be problematic for you to restrict vending in certain areas, but allow sandwich signs. So one of the reasons why you restrict vending on the sidewalk is because it obstructs the sidewalk, correct? And so, part of that is that the vending itself takes up space, not just the customer. So it's customers, vending, et cetera, right? So if you allow people to put sandwich boards in the right of way, what is the difference between the two of those in terms of what is your rational basis? Because you have to have a basis for treating them differently. So what is going to be the government's basis for saying that you can have this sandwich board in the right of way, that, takes up a quarter of the sidewalk, but you can't have a man who's making clown balloons or whatever it is, right? What's the difference? And so if I'm a litigator and I'm in federal court, because that would be a federal claim, having to defend the rational basis, I'm going to have to come with a real reason. And it doesn't have to be the best reason, but rational basis does mean that you have to have some reason. It can't just be that I think sandwich boards are pretty and I think that the man making clown balloons is obstructing the sidewalk and he does something that's annoying to me, right? So what is going to be the government's reason for restricting one activity in the public sphere versus another? So I think when you start talking about this, I see where there could be some distinctions, but like I said, I wasn't involved in this as I was on medical leave, but just looking at it and knowing what I know about the history of vending in the right-of-way and looking at sandwich boards, I think that was the rationale that, not to use rationale too much, but I think that was the reason why we had a little bit of heartburn about saying that where we've pushed all these vendors out and told them they could not vend, now we're gonna come in and say, okay, but you can put these signs up in the right-of-way, even though there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, right? And I think that maybe the captain can speak more about pedestrian traffic in the right-of-way downtown as it relates to public safety, because I think that was one of the other issues, right, with vending was that the police felt that it was actually probably going to obstruct public safety and our responses to safety matters in the downtown area.
Yeah, I remember a couple years ago when this came up with the vending, there were numerous issues that it wasn't just obstructing a passageway with the vending, it was coming into greater issues of public safety that the police were having to deal with bringing in people that were saying they were vending, maybe having products that they shouldn't have been selling or vending down there and other activities. And that when the sidewalks got congested, particularly during those peak times downtown, from any obstruction, that was leading to the people in the roadways even more than necessary, and bringing some concerns and some conflicts into people just not being able to move freely on the sidewalk, and business owners that were worried about people right in front of their business. There was a myriad of issues in those two things. So I think from the police department standpoint, I think there is support for keeping the sandwich board signs out of the same area as the vending.
Do you have any other questions? Did I explain that well enough? It's kind of like the triage version of constitutional law.
So I think it's a great explanation in the sense of what the vending allows. It allows for us as a board to expand or retract that area, which I'm not sure I see that in the legislation as written on this, which would be something I guess I would want to see, so that way it's an opportunity, because it sounds, I understand that downtown may have some different issues than some of the other places, but it seems like we would want to be able to have that flexibility to expand or reduce it based on the actual things that are going on, and not necessarily written in code for that one specific item versus sidewalk vending allows for us to, we already expanded it. It got expanded before I joined. So what's in code is already different than what's right here.
Casey Hopkins with NDOT, and yeah, that's something we can definitely adjust. But I will add to what Council was saying. I think in the top of the sidewalk vending ordinance, it does mention temporary signs as part of that sidewalk vending. So I think that's where we wanted to be careful and be ensuring that the two were very aligned.
That is correct. I forgot that. I think sandwich boards are specifically defined in 13.08.040, and they are not allowed under that code. And so I think that this is trying to modify that. But I do think that it would be a good idea to bring parity to vending and sandwich boards, maybe to figure out a way so that it's a little in line with where the commission decides that there should be vending.
I would add that as it's written currently, it does leave it open for NDOT currently to change the zone size. I know that's different from with sidewalk vending, so bringing that in alignment with the sidewalk vending would be a good thing.
Just a quick clarification on, so thinking about these things all kind of have to align with each other. Is that the legal argument in terms of having a restricted area versus what we allow for the entire county? We are segmenting out downtown as different. And that's what we're explaining. Downtown is different. That's why we put in this difference of where you can and cannot do it.
Are you talking in terms of vending or sandwich boards?
Well, I mean, that's what's there now is vending. So, and we're doing that with sandwich boards. But that's the argument is downtown is different and unique, even though there are probably other places in the city that may see more foot traffic on a specific sidewalk that's not downtown.
Yes, I think at the time when sidewalk vending was banned in downtown, there were a number of actual safety concerns about having enough space on the sidewalk as it was, which was a pretty big sidewalk on Broadway, for all of your pedestrians and your police officers and your vendors and everything else that was happening. It was just like too much at once. So that is why Broadway and the areas around it, because of those at night, because the vendors mainly weren't, if I remember correctly, they weren't coming at noon. Some of them were, but it was really at 2 a.m. when you were having a lot of vendors who were in the sidewalks. And so then it was pushing pedestrians out into the roads. So we decided, I think it was decided that, Metro decided that we needed to make it so that pedestrians could use the sidewalk, even if it was 2 a.m. We didn't really want to have people who were, because people were setting up tables where they were like taking pictures and doing all kinds of things. So that was the rationale. And I understand that there probably are other places in Metro where there are a lot of people on the sidewalks, but I think if you aggregated the traffic that's daily on Broadway, 24 hours, there's probably nowhere that compares in Nashville, based on what I have seen. But that was the reason, is because if you see video footage, you look at it, it is clear that there is a lot of pedestrian traffic. You know, if you're down there at 2 a.m. on CMA Festival Week, it's very packed. So we have to have clear sidewalks. We have to have emergency responders, police be able to get to where they need to go.
Thank you.
I'll add one more thing to that. So another consideration, and I believe, Flinda, you referenced this as well, is access in and out of buildings when there's life safety issues. So one of the big things that was part of this as well when we were discussing was the access for emergency services, Nashville Fire, getting in and out of businesses, and that blocking of the sidewalk occurring because of that. But yes.
I'd like to add, I'd helped co-write some of the sidewalk vending legislation, and, you know, the concerns you brought up were exactly those that were made. We had a sidewalk vending task force consisting of downtown stakeholders and sidewalk vendors. And at some of those meetings, it was pointed out that it's like, hey, you're talking about, banning downtown sidewalk vending, and yet there's these sandwich boards that you guys allow over there. Now, since we removed sidewalk vending from the downtown core, we have expanded that prohibition footprint through regulations passed by this body, and the vendors and the owners of sandwich boards have adapted by moving out of the right of way. And if you go downtown, anytime you can go downtown tonight, you'll see, yes, there are vendors there, but they're not sidewalk vendors. They're not in the right of way, and the sandwich boards that you may find out there are technically not in the public right of way.
Yeah, just my last point on a lot of this is just what it does seem like with the previous legislation, this as well, is instead of creating legislation that is specific to the instances that are happening, we decided to use a broad brush to make it easier to enforce. Because from my understanding of the discussions that they had, it was really hard for cops to understand specifically where vending was allowed or not allowed. Because we created a myriad of, you have to be 5 feet from this, you have to be 10 feet from this. And so it wasn't marked out, it wasn't easy to enforce. And so that's what we were trying to do more than anything by excluding the downtown, is to say, all of this is excluded. Instead of saying, we will go out with a marker and show you exactly where you can or cannot be, and creating a system around that, we just said, this is easier, we won't deal with it, it's banned. I, at some point, would like to see us get back to the idea of sidewalk vending is something a big city should be able to do. I think that there are absolutely places where there might be issues, but I think that as we grow capacity, as we grow GIS mapping, as we grow that ability to provide that data directly to the field, we should be able to do that. I hope that as we sculpt this legislation, that's kind of thought out. Because that should be something that people are able to do, is come to the city and be able to sell in the most populated place with the most pedestrian traffic. That is exactly where you'd want to be as a vendor. That's why they were trying to be there. There's definitely things that they shouldn't be selling that, that's another piece to this, but let's try to find spots for people to do that work versus just taking it away.
Anything else? Thanks for that.
I will add, I agree with the commissioner in a sense of the ease of enforcement was part of looking at that, but also we looked at volumes of pedestrians as well in those zones. So that was not the only thing, but it is always going to be communication and the ease of enforcement does factor into it. But I understand your point.
Thank you. Sure.
Just a process question. So y'all said that we don't have to vote on this time. So I just wanted to get a quick feel, and I think this can be a quick discussion. Do we want to make a recommendation on this, or do we want to punt to next month when we might be able to see some of the drafted changes that reflect the discussions that had happened here?
I think next month makes sense. What do you think?
I'm good with that, so I'll move that we defer consideration of the ordinance to our March meeting.
Do we need to make we need to make a motion on that? We do, okay. We have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's passed. Thank you. 7.1, revocation of abandoned Valet Lane on the west side of 601 12th Avenue South and approval of new loading zone effective 24/7, requested by NDOT. Mr. Mateus.
This is an item that was deferred last month. We came up with providing some feedback on what it could be in the midst of it not being a valet zone anymore. And so the best course of action at this point would be a loading zone, which would allow for freight unloading and also passenger unloading at this time until another consideration is in place if the restaurants reopens and they would like a valet, which would then require them to go through the process of applying again and going through the whole spiel, including bringing it to your discretion and then voting on it in the future.
Questions from commissioners?
Just want to thank y'all for doing that.
Thank you so much.
If there's no questions, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation of canceling the valet parking lane and approving a 24/7 loading zone at this location.
It's been first and second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I have one item for new business, I'm sorry.
Oops, sorry.
We've talked a lot about the RPPs. I would like to see staff come back with information on the RPP application and the implementation thereof, so that we have a good understanding of how that process works. How long would it take for you all to be able to do that? I know you're working on something, so how long is it going to be before you have what you feel is a working system to be able to come back to us to explain it?
Are you referring to the current one or the ones that we are trying to implement, the new one?
The new one.
I mean, it hasn't gone through the reading with legal yet, so I don't want to say, I mean, at least 3 months.
Okay.
I think that's a fair time frame.
Okay.
Would that work?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.